I don't know about you, but working from home just hits differently during the summer. As a former teacher, one of the things I definitely was not prepared for when I started my business was how much I would miss some time off during the summer. There's something about that warm sunshine that just makes it harder to sit at a desk and get things done. Plus, around here, schools are out at the end of May, which means my daughter is home and ready to do all the things. Our routines are off, and frankly, I just lose some of my usual motivation during the summer months. At the time this episode airs, I'm also out on maternity leave. So I asked my friends Melanie and Branda to take over the podcast this week, and they definitely delivered. They're here to share some great advice on how to tackle work from home life this summer without completely losing your sanity. Mel and Branda started their own co-hosted podcast a few months ago called Chaos to Conversions. So definitely head over there and add it to your library after listening to this one. Branda is an amazing copywriter and Mel is a launch strategist and OBM. So they've got all kinds of good stuff in that podcast. But for now, let's go hear some summer work from home tips from Branda and Mel. Your podcast is a powerful tool that serves your audience and your business. But how do you manage it all, bring in new listeners, and convert those listeners into customers? That's what this show is all about. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators. I'm Sarah Whitaker, classroom teacher turned podcast manager, and I'm here to help you get the most out of your show, all while making an impact on other educators.
Whether you already work from home full-time or only working on your business from home during the summer, navigating the summer chaos adds a layer of complexity.
We're bringing you some quick tips and advice to help you get shit done this season without missing out on all that summer fun. So we gathered some information from both Branda and I's Instagram audiences, and we saw some common themes that we just felt like we wanted to talk about working from home during the summer with or without kids. We're going to talk about it all here today. I don't know about you guys, and I don't know about Branda, but we're about to find out sometimes because Branda and I are both ex-teachers, meaning we are taught for quite a few years and now we're no longer in the classroom. Sometimes I have that summer FOMO from being able to just kind of not, completely turn off. That's just not really the kind of person I am, but turn it down at least in June and July. It's just not really possible as an entrepreneur anymore.
Yeah, it is really hard. I definitely feel like I miss the summers a little bit. So it's hard to be inside.
It is. Yeah, I'm not good. And that's like, do you get asked that a lot as like a former teacher? I get asked that a lot. Like, oh, don't you miss the summers? And my friends that are still in the classroom, like, yeah, I still miss the summers. Like, arguably one of the, better perks about being a teacher, for sure.
Oh, yeah, having the time off. But then also, living in Texas, I'm like, it's 100 degrees for 30 days. So I'm inside most of the time anyways.
Yeah, I guess that is true. So, I guess the challenge, right, is like usually unless it's 100 degrees or 110 degrees like it is in Texas, you want to get outside sometime during the summer. You might miss being a bit more social, especially if, you previously had the summers off and you're feeling kind of like that lack of motivation. You'd rather be on vacation and you kind of feel, at least I know I do sometimes. I definitely have had summer FOMO. And last summer I worked on it a little bit and I'm feeling a little bit more rejuvenated about trying again this summer with like some better strategies. So something that I try and do at least once a day is definitely get outside. I'm in Virginia. It does get pretty hot, not Texas hot, but it does get pretty hot here. So I try and at least get outside in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, again, it is hot here. So I at least have the balcony I can sit out on, which is really nice. But I did hear from like the Instagram audience too, a lot of people, especially if you have a pool in your backyard or, you live in an apartment with a pool, like getting outside to just work in that space too is really nice. That's never really worked well for me though. Do you like normally work while outside?
Yeah, well, it depends. So I have like a deck attached to, we have a pool in our HOA, but it's like walking distance. So I don't really usually work there, but we do have a pretty nice deck on the back of our house. So sometimes I work out there, but I don't know, the glare kind of like drives me
Yes.
crazy. It depends on the time of day, but I will sometimes bring out my laptop there, like if my kids are playing the water table or whatever, but we're kind of aging out of the water table and aging like into the straight pool. So that part is getting harder. In the morning, I like to work outside sometimes, like before it also gets super, super hot.
Yeah, I agree. That's like the best time for those southern summers. And then also, like you're right, the glare on the computer is kind of the worst. So I kind of can avoid that in the mornings.
Yeah, definitely. I think another tip that we got was about like keeping your to-do list realistic. And sometimes it might be good at the beginning of summer to kind of take an audit of what you have going on during the summer. Like if you have things that you've planned for yourself, right? Like personal, or if you have, launches in your own business or anything like that, to make sure that your to-do list is realistic so you don't feel at the end of every day like, wah, 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 I didn't get anything done.
Yeah, I think especially if you're someone like we both do a lot of service-based stuff. So we have like timelines, right, that we have to get stuff to clients. But
Yeah,
when you're doing more product-based stuff and working during the summer, I think it's really easy to overestimate how much you can do. So like someone recommended like using little rewards, and I'll definitely do that too. I'm like, okay, if I finish this thing today, then I'll, go on a walk or I'll eat an extra piece of chocolate. I don't know, but something to kind of motivate yourself. I'll go get a Starbucks. I'll go get a smoothie. Just a good way to also continue to get out of the house. But yeah, it can
definitely.
be really demotivating during the summer when you see everyone else outside doing fun things. So,
Right. And also keep in mind, social media can be a highlight reel too.
really
I
good
feel like
point.
even more so during the summer.
No, yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's maybe one of the hardest things for me transitioning away from teaching into doing full time work from home. A lot of my friends are teachers still. So seeing them off during the summer and doing stuff, I'm like, dang, I kind of wish I had that time. So, or I see people on social media traveling and I'm like, I don't have the budget for that this year. So it's kind of hard to see, but you're right. It really is a highlight reel a lot of times.
Yeah. And you got to think about, now we're off on a wee tangent, but I feel like you got to think about like, even though you might miss summer as if you're out of the classroom, or even if you're in the classroom, but you're trying to grow your teacher business, the flexibility that you're granted now the rest of the year, even if you're not necessarily off for those, 8 weeks anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Another kind of big point that we came across when we were asking people their struggles for the summer was sharing a space. And I think this can mean a lot of different things. For me personally, I share a space with my husband. And if you've ever been on a Zoom call with me, then you will see a lot of times I have like a barrier up behind me so that you cannot see my lovely dear husband sitting at his desk behind me. But you also could be sharing space with kids. You could have a roommate or be living in like a small apartment, something like that. And so maybe your workspace is in your living room, right? So I think there's a lot of, again, the complexity that comes with summer and being at home and maybe a space you normally aren't, that kind of adds some extra layers to making work hard. You don't share a space though, do you, Millie? I know you and your husband swapped spaces this year or last year.
We did at some point. Yeah. I think it was late 2023. We swapped places. And that I think it's important if you do share a space to talk about your different work styles, which led to like Joe and I switching spaces because I'm in the basement and it doesn't have a door. So I can hear, you guys can't see me, but I'm wearing giant noise canceling headphones. And sometimes I wear them during the day, even when I'm not on calls, because you can hear everything like right upstairs. Right now, I have a 3-year-old too. So she is home all the time. My mom comes over and helps out with childcare. And like, I'm also right downstairs. So I help out as well in between like work. So, and he was not thriving being able to hear the kids. And he's on a lot more meetings than I am. So we switched spaces. And that was all went back to like communication when we realized he would be a much happier human being with a door to close. And it was actually in our bedroom, which after setting up like my corner space in our room, I actually hated it. I hated working in our bedroom. So we're both much, much happier now.
Yeah, I think that's also kind of going back to our tangent about the highlight reels. I think everyone that I see on social media has like the most fancy office and setup, and it's like their own individual room. But I think the reality is a lot of us don't have that luxury of all having like the most fancy office space. So if you ever have felt that pressure that that's what it has to look like, a lot of people are sharing spaces or working out of their bedroom or in things like that, right? So cut yourself a little bit of slack there. But kind of like you said, Melanie, I think the work styles are really important. I'm definitely someone who gets more work done in the morning. My husband is the opposite. He gets more work done in the afternoon. So we've had to set a lot of boundaries and create some really clear rules in the house around what it looks like to work in the same space together. And that was pretty challenging for us when I first started working from home because he would want to talk all morning to me. And I'm like, dude, I'm like trying to get stuff done, And he's just a talkative person in general. So I get it because I'm the same way in the afternoon. I'm like, let's chit chat. And he's like, I'm busy. So I think creating those really clear rules. What does it look like if you're on a video call? Do you want the person in the room with you? Do you need to be able to close the door? Do you need no interruption? Maybe you need to put a sign up, wear noise canceling headphones, whatever that looks like for you to make that collaborative space more functional or that shared space more functional. And then of course, like if you have kids too, if you don't have help there, what does that look like to possibly have to work in the room with kids? I know some people will have like a little table set up where the kid can come and color or whatever, play while they're in the room. So I don't know I know you usually have someone who kind of helps out, but I don't know how it works for you, Melanie, when it is you trying to work and parent.
Yeah. And the summer looks a lot different as well because your kids are home usually. And at least in this area, summer camps are super expensive. Plus, I mean, my oldest at the time of this airing, she's going to be 6, but she's super shy. Like a summer camp is not like that's just going to cause way more stress and tears for everybody than just having some activities and stuff for her to do at home. So I think like that is something really important to think about with kids too. First thing is I always tell myself that everything is like a phase because it's so true. I remember so I didn't start my business. My oldest was, she was 2 because I was pregnant with my second. So it seemed impossible, right? Like, how am I going to do this with 2 little kids? And then having a newborn and being up all night. And now it's funny because I look back with an almost 6 and a 3-year-old and well, at least I could like wear the newborn. Like there's pictures of me wearing Cecilia when Lucy was at preschool. And I mean, she slept a lot of the day and it seemed really hard. And I would have to take breaks and stuff to feed her. And that seemed impossible. But now like they're both home and they're both like noisy and needy. And that seems impossible. But, before I know it, they'll both be at school and like full time and things will be, I guess, a little bit more status quo again. But that doesn't help anything for summer. So what I tried to do last summer and what I'm going to be more intentional about doing this summer is going against everything that I like to do during summer and like actually plan my day and plan my breaks with kids. Like literally plan the week. We're going to go to the pool this day. I'm not going to work in the afternoon, this day. On this day, we're going to go to the Discovery Museum or something like that. And I'll, get up and work early because my mom and my mother-in-law do help out a lot, but 2 kids is a lot harder than 1 kid, 4 kids is a lot harder than 2 kids.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Plus, I started this to be able to be around my kids even more, which sometimes I think goes back to like the summer FOMO, because if I was a teacher, like I still in the classroom, I would just have, time basically all summer. So I think getting really intentional and planning when you're going to do what can be super helpful. I also don't mind working early mornings or nights sometimes. I just like to know what I'm doing. So I think if you can plan sort of out exactly what you want to do each week, not like weeks in advance. I'm talking like Saturday or Sunday. Just take a look at the next week and see what you want to do for the week. Just planning that out can be super helpful. I also batch my meetings, which can be something that if you don't have a lot of help with your kids, or some people don't have any meetings at all, but at this point in where I am with my business, I usually at least have 2 to 3 meetings a week. So especially in the summer, I put them all on Tuesdays and just knock them all out. And then like that kind of day might be like lost for going out and like doing different activities, but at least it's only like one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you do anything specifically on those kind of days where you do have long meetings?
So that is where, like, if I didn't have my mom, for example, like I would hire a mother's helper that day for like 4 hours is probably like the solution that I would do. I know some moms feel super guilty about screen time, as do I. But again, it goes back to like planning. And if you do it intentionally, like we're going to watch a movie on Tuesday morning, like that's, it's what we're going to do while mommy has like her 2, meetings back to back. Like I think as long as you are using it intentionally, then there's less to feel guilty about. I also have like different, toys and activities that you can bring out for like specifically when you're on calls. My youngest, it's a challenging age, 3. Like, my older one can understand, but like 2 to 3, I think is pretty tough because the attention span is like so much shorter. So meetings are the toughest bit though. I think like you can get around almost anything else pretty easily with intentional planning and like being flexible.
Yeah. And kind of going with that, like intentional planning too. I think it's really important to plan and you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but like your time off that you want to take. So if maybe you want to spend Fridays, you're like, you know what, Friday is going to be the day I don't do any work. I just spend with the kids, or I just spend with myself or my husband, or whatever your plan is, to get that like on the schedule sooner rather than later. I think that's like probably the biggest lesson I learned working from home, summer or not. If I don't say I'm taking the time off, I'm going on the vacation, it will never happen. It has to be on the schedule. The time has to be marked so that no one can take up that time. I can't schedule a meeting. I can't put things on my to-do list for that day. So, and we did touch on that a little bit in episode 1, talking about quarterly planning. I know we're talking about quarterly planning in that episode, but technically the summer falls over some of those quarters. So if you can, go back to that episode, that is a great one to kind of, look at that planning and just start marking things off and decide how you want to handle your to-do list for that time period over the summer. Also setting a time to like walk away from the work. I think that's easier when you don't have kids for sure. I know, like you've said, sometimes you just have to do the early mornings or the evenings. I don't have kids at this point in my life, so I kind of just do like a typical work day, like a 9 to 5 kind of thing. I'm like, okay, by 4:00, I'm getting off. We're done. Sometimes I might come back in the evening if my entrepreneur brain can't turn off and I want to get a few more things done. But in general, having that kind of cutoff time is really helpful, and being able to have days to like look forward to. And I don't know about how many like vacations you guys normally take during the summer, but we normally have a fairly long one because my family lives out of town. We don't live near our families. And so we have to block out usually a week or 2. And that can be tough to plan around, especially when you have a lot on your to-do list. But sometimes I just go ahead and mark 2 weeks off, even if I haven't booked the flights yet, just to know like it's going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-plan for that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. We haven't done as many vacations the last couple of years, but usually we don't do anything too crazy. Just head to the beach for a week or so. But with Lucy being in school full time, I used to like to go to the beach in September, like the beginning of September. I felt like that was the best time, but I don't want to pull her out of school for a week. But I digress. We'll get into a new routine and habit. We just haven't yet. I thought of one more thing while you were talking though, about like walking away, which is, actually 2 more things, which is sometimes easier said than done. Going back to like planning breaks in your day, I feel like if you can plan, and this is sort of speaking to kids, if you're trying to, and I learned this the hard way, and I still learn this the hard way, probably at least once a month. If you are trying to work and pay attention to your kids at the same time, I've been here more times than I, would like to admit. You will end up like frustrated with them and then also like mad at yourself for getting frustrated with them because, they're little and they just want your attention. So that I would say is the best part of like planning intentionally. And then the other thing that I do, especially during the summer, if I'm working sometimes in the morning or sometimes at night, is I have like a master backlog task list that is stuff that might not be super time sensitive. Like it might not be client work, but I always also try and just lean into like what I feel like doing at that point in time if it's something that's not time sensitive. It's a slippery slope though, because I guess it means some things might never get done. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know about you, but like I definitely write better in the morning. Like if I'm writing an email or something, there's almost a 0% chance I'm doing that after 2 p.m.
Yeah, actually, I was just having a conversation with someone about this on Instagram the other day. And she was saying, like, when do you work better in the morning? I'm like, honestly, it kind of changes a little bit day to day. I typically do write better in the morning. But sometimes, yeah, like I wake up and I'm stressed or overwhelmed from the things that have been going on. And I need almost like a little dopamine hit of like, I want to just do something that I want to do. And I think that's good to pull it off of that list of, your master backlog or whatever you call it. I just have it on my like weekly to-do list tracker. And I'm like, okay, which of these things actually sound fun that I want to just have a creative outlet. I want to do something I want to do. And I think that kind of goes back to we were talking about like staying motivated during the summer. Like it is a hard time to stay motivated already because you want to be out of the house, you want to be traveling, you want to be enjoying outdoors. And if everything on your to-do list every single day is stressful, overwhelming, and things you don't love, you're going to wake up every day not wanting to sit down and get it done. So sometimes you need that little dopamine hit,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think the last thing I would kind of say about the schedules and time off, again, setting reasonable expectations and to-do lists, but also setting expectations with other people that you work with. If you have any contractors that you work with, letting them know that you're going to be taking time off and that you're not going to be available, and setting your out of office messages, turning off your notifications. Like if you're taking the day off, if you've said, I'm not working on Fridays or I'm going on vacation, it is so easy to leave all the apps on your phone going off the entire time that you're out of town or on your day off and getting distracted and going back to work. So try to let as many people as you know who might be messaging you or looking for you that you're not going to be available. And even if you're a totally solo team and it's just you, delete the apps or turn off your notifications. I like pause all my notifications so that I can't get anything while I'm trying to take time off because it is so easy to slip back into work mode.
Yeah, that's smart. I'm terrible at that. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm actually going on vacation in 10 days from when we're recording this for like 5 days. I'll do my best to take your advice, Branda.
Yeah, it really does work because I'm addicted to my phone. So if I don't turn it off, I'll be right back on it.
Yeah, I believe it. Working from home during the summer brings some extra challenges. Schedules are changing, kids are home, and the sun is inviting you outside. Be sure to set reasonable expectations for yourself, create a schedule that fits your need for fun, and stay flexible through this chaotic season.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can tune in each week for Chaos to Conversions for practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. We drop a new episode every Tuesday, and we're covering topics like launching, business mindset, copywriting, and more. We hope to see you there.
Thanks again to Branda and Mel for taking over the podcast this week. I hope it helps motivate you to push through those days that just feel hard as a business owner this summer. I especially love the advice about giving yourself a little reward after getting certain things done on your to-do list. For me, a nice cold beverage is always my go-to reward during the summer, whether that's a Coke Zero, an iced coffee, or a glass of wine at the end of the day. If you loved this episode, tag us on Instagram and let us know what motivates you during the summer. And don't forget to check out Branda and Mel's new podcast, Chaos to Conversions. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. To keep this conversation going, connect with me on Instagram at Podcasting for Educators. I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about podcasting. If you're looking for support in launching, managing, or growing your podcast, check out my online course, the Podcasting for Educators Prep School, at podcastingforeducators.com/prep school. I'll see you here next time.